Video games. They've become a fundamental aspect of the media industry. Today, there's something for everyone, and for the first time ever, video gaming is encouraged to be a family activity. So it's evident that gaming is a great way to kill time and boredom. But are there benefits of video gaming that outweigh the possible negative consequences?
There's heaps of educational stuff.
We don't seem to get upset when students spend 3 hours with their head in a book, but we do if they spend 3 hours on a video game.
And are there any profound risks of gaming that people need to be more aware of before they partake in overly long sessions of gaming?
There can be, in extreme cases, gangrene where the toe goes black with no circulation.
I certainly wouldn't recommend playing a game 36 hours straight.
Throughout the course of this documentary, we will be trying to establish the differences between the real risks of gaming and the possible media exaggerations. I'm Tom, a 17-year-old filmmaker from the Isle of Wight. I'm a pretty typical teenager. I like going to parties, I like skateboarding, but most of all, I like video games. It's no secret that back in high school, I was obsessed with video games. I would play them every day from the moment I got home until I went to bed. It's all I could think about. It didn't seem like such a big deal at the time, but now I realise they took up far too much of my time. But can this time consumption be as detrimental as the media claims, or is there a healthy way to incorporate video games into our lives so that we can reap the benefits?
Game over.
Modern video games have been demonised a lot by the media. It's a common perception that video games can be linked with violent acts in young people.
I think whether video games influence violent behaviour is quite an interesting area. I think it's one that's still being researched by academics, and various members of the police and prison service have different ideas. There was a lot of publicity, I'm sure you remember, when the little Jamie Bolger was murdered, that the boys who'd killed him had been watching a violent video game. I'm sure what we read, watch has an influence on us, but I think the link hasn't been directly proven yet.
A study that was published on sodahead.com said that in 2008, 97% of 12 to 17-year-olds in the US played video games, thus fueling an $11.7 billion domestic video game industry. 10 of the top 20 best-selling video games in the US that year contained violence.
Most kids nowadays are growing violent because of the games they play.
I don't think there's really much hurt that gaming can do. Like, it doesn't turn you into a violent person or something.
I think they can be too addictive because a lot of the time people, like when a game comes out, people just want to play it and not do their college work or not see friends. It can ruin your social life because your friends can get annoyed at you, and college life because you miss a deadline or something.
I was talking to a couple of lecturers in one of the departments yesterday who said that apparently a new video game that's a very popular one has just been released, and so quite a few of the students haven't been in college for 2 days because they've bought it and they're busy going through the game.
To gain a better understanding of the aim of video games, I went to see my friend Ash, a young games designer. Ash has had one of his games bought by an internet flash game website, and he's currently working towards getting an apprenticeship with Stainless Games. So this is his new house. Hope he's in. It's dark so quick in the winter. It was light a minute ago. Oh, here he is. Hey man,
Alright.
How have you been?
I'm good, you?
I'm good.
Come and take shoes off.
Wow.
layer.
It's awesome. Jeez, you just set up.
That's years of progress, right?
Sweet. So, like, how'd you get into it all?
It was originally from a program called SolidWorks, which is based off more of like the engineering side of 3D. And I learned 3D from there, and then I went on to more coding.
You always wanted to do it?
Huh?
You always wanted to do it?
Always wanted to do what, all the gaming stuff, yeah. It is good fun. Especially when you get to mess around with the games and kill the other people.
The violence, yeah. Do you think it influences violence? In real life?
No.
You don't?
Not when you've been developing it. Even for the perspective of the actual player themselves, I don't think it does. See, I mean, even this.
So you made this game then?
Yep. Yes. No, it was a joint effort between me and my friend Ben.
This is awesome. So, like, do you aim to make these addictive for people?
Yeah, we already have. But the way we do it is it's via challenge and the speed pace. So we try to have the pace quite fast. So you're always running about doing something, because the time when you stop is when your brain's basically not working. And what I came up with for the addictiveness side is that the game starts off with, say, a set amount of resources, and those resources are then used to upgrade your weapons.
Right.
And then from that, once you've run out of resources, you can't upgrade anymore until 5 or 10 minutes later, and then the resources are topped up. So it forces you to play an extra 5 or 10 minutes.
Right, you literally have to.
Yeah, you literally have to play it the 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can upgrade.
Alright. That talk with Ash really made me realise that video games, well, they are addictive, and the designers aim to make them addictive. You know, they're addictive through these reward systems that they give players this sense of achievement and satisfaction that they may not be getting in the real world. But now I want to look at what stage this addictiveness can get, dangerous.
I think that if you spend too long like sitting down and staring at a screen, you're gonna end up hurting your back and your eyes, and you'll strain yourself.
I think there is a risk to do with spending a lot of time gaming, because if you sit there for a long time, you can get cramp in your back, cramp in your neck, stuff like that.
I think the worst things you can get from it, I hear, is deep vein thrombosis.
In 2011, 20-year-old Chris Staniforth died of a deep vein thrombosis after supposedly playing video games for 12 hours straight. Is this a realistic risk of gaming?
Deep vein thrombosis is largely when a small clot forms in the perforating veins, the little ones that lead into the big veins that carry blood back up to the heart. Now, quite often it can be a small clot due to sluggish circulation that moves from the small perforating veins into a larger vessel. Sitting still for long periods of time, such as on train journeys, plane journeys, but also those who are in sedentary occupations, sitting at their desk for a long time, or indeed at your computer at home. While the legs and calf muscles aren't active, that means there's sluggish circulation coming back to the heart, and little clots can form that can cause potential problem in the bigger veins.
So we see now that there are many cases arguing for the negatives of video gaming. I want to go and investigate further about what we've heard and uncover a perhaps different viewpoint to see whether there are as many positive arguments for video gaming. I started by going to speak to Mark Dean, Assistant Manager of GameStation, to hear the views of someone who works in the video game industry. Although video games get demonised quite a lot in today's media, do you think that they bring any positive health benefits?
There's like heaps of positive stuff it brings out. We've got several customers that have serious mental conditions, Asperger's, autism, stuff like that. But through the aid of things like Xbox Live, PlayStation Online, PC MMORPG games, which are demonised a lot of the time, they've actually managed to contact and speak with people which they normally wouldn't in the real world. They'd simply be locked in and they'd never meet anybody. So there's fantastic benefits. I mean, taking into account things like the DS games that have educational mathematics, learn languages, learn to drive, stuff like that. There's heaps of educational stuff.
Do you think that kids these days need to be more aware of the risks of gaming?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we try and there's things installed to make games more acceptable and make games more age certificate. One of them is the numbers on the front of the game, which is the age suitability, which is the Pan-European Games Institute. They put it on there now, as well as the BFCC, like the 18 and 15 you see on front of movies. But then we've also got the staff here that can recommend the correct age group and the technicalities of a game. So yeah, no, I think they're doing a fantastic job at the moment.
There have been several reported deaths that were supposedly caused by gaming. Why do you think that people still decide to buy these games regardless of these risks?
The isolated incidents you're talking about are to my mind, South Korean MMORPG players that played in a coffee bar for something like 48 hours straight and seriously damaged their health. There have been a health warning as to the serious detrimental effect on your health playing stupidly pre-long period of time. And I think it was their choice to ignore that. If you choose to ignore something, a brilliant example would be reckless driving. You decide to do 90 miles an hour down a road that says 20, then that's fine, but that's your choice.
How do you think that you as a gaming store could help warn people of the risks of video gaming for long periods of time?
You can't physically stop people watching videos, eating chocolate or playing a game for 36 hours straight, unfortunately. We do try and highlight all the things that can happen, but ultimately, once they purchase the game, it's kind of up to the person to kind of take consideration of that.
Wow, like that interview with Mark was so good. I mean, he said some amazing points. I think he was so right about when he said that it's their own fault. These people that are playing these games for ridiculous amounts of time, you know, they're just having these 48-hour sessions where they have no breaks. I mean, they kind of ignore the health warnings. And I think perhaps the best point he made that I had never even considered before was how beneficial these games can be for people with mental disabilities. You know, for some people, these games are their social life. A point that Mark raised in our interview that unfortunately didn't get filmed was that he said he is aware of more cases where there have been violent outbreaks in the real world that were caused by people playing sports games, as opposed to games with a violent content, which, if you think about it, makes sense because sports are competitive, you know, it's a competitive area, and that reflects onto the games. It's just interesting then because you can't really blame violent outbreaks on violent content in a video game, and I think if anything, violent video games actually help the aggression because you're taking out your aggression in the game rather than in real life, and that's beneficial, really. Mark mentioned earlier that there are many different ways gaming manufacturers promote a healthy lifestyle into their products. There is Kinect for Xbox, PlayStation Move, and even a whole console dedicated to keeping active, such as the Nintendo Wii.
I think video games have immense benefits with education. I think they're very good at engaging students of all ages, people of all ages. If you've got an interesting game, you're going to get a message across, and that can be used for education. I think that they help students concentrate, they improve reaction times. I think there's lots of good benefits with them. We shouldn't be too negative. I was reading an article the other day which said that we don't seem to get upset when students spend 3 hours with their head in a book, but we do if they spend 3 hours on a video game.
Most kids nowadays are growing violent because of the games they play.
You can't physically stop people watching videos, eating chocolate or playing a game for 36 hours straight, unfortunately.
When the little Jamie Bolger was murdered, the boys who'd killed him had been watching a violent video game.
I haven't noticed DVTs in the younger age group.
Like when a game comes out, people just want to play it and not do their college work and not see friends. It can ruin your social life because your friends can get annoyed at you, and college life because you miss a deadline or something.
I don't think there's really much hurt that gaming can do. Like, it doesn't turn you into a violent person or something.
When you're playing a game, it isn't real life though, is it? It's a reality, and as long as they understand that when they're playing it.
I guess it all comes down to everything in moderation. If you do anything too much, then it's going to be detrimental to your health, both mental and physical. As far as video gaming goes, I honestly don't think I'd be the person I am today without them. I love them. But I'm definitely going to try and play them less, and concentrate on my college work. It would take over your life if you let it. I guess it's comparable to binge drinking or binge eating, Don't binge game.